It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy, back with Hometown Commander. And per usual arrangement, we're back for another episode of Millzy Brews, show where I brew a deck for y'all and talk about it. I have kind of wrapped my brain and tried to wrap my brain about a bunch of other Jumpstart 2022 commanders. And to be 100% honest, I just couldn't find lists I loved. I couldn't find lists that I wanted to put my passion behind. And I want to make sure that I'm producing decks for you guys that I can put my passion behind, that I enjoy talking about. And hopefully you guys will enjoy as well. So for the last 2 or 3 weeks we have here before Phyrexia comes out, I thought I'd do a couple personal brews. I thought I would pick some other commanders and do some lists. I want this show to be partially a place where I can take stabs at commanders I want to take a stab at, as opposed to just always doing something new. So if that's something that interests you, hit me a like on this video, subscribe. Tell me down in the comments what commanders you want to see me do when we get, breaks in between other commanders. But today, we're actually refreshing a deck. I did test for a time. So I built a Klauth list right about after it came out. But the reason it stopped, or the reason I took the list apart, was because Miram came out in Commander Legends 2, but Boogaloo, Electro Boogaloo, no, Baldur's Gate. Miram came out, and to me the deck did everything that I wanted a Timber Dragons list to do that I felt like we couldn't do before. And so I kind of put Klauth to the wayside because I thought, yeah, Gruul Dragons was cool, but this over here, and so I quit for that. But as of late, I realized with a staple binder and a lot of things that I have in the binder, I can build this deck and not have to buy too much extra to have this deck here. And Klauth plays differently than Miram does. Miram is more of a combo deck. Klauth is more focused on big mana. So this is a Dragons tribal deck, but I am also calling it Klauth Big Mana because it's part of the way we want to win the games. Klauth says whenever it attacks, add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the total power of attacking creatures. Spend this mana only to cast spells until end of turn. You do not lose mana steps and phases end. Klauth, when put down properly and aided by a bunch of other dragons, produces a ton of mana. I have won a lot of games with decks like this list, some older lists, with things like Crack with Power and Jai Simulating Inferno very quickly. It's very hard to stop this deck, and if you don't have those cards, you dump 18 or 20 of that mana, maybe, or 15 or 14 how much mana you have into more permanents and more creatures, and now your opponents are going to have an even harder time dealing with Klauth. Now, there's 2 ways that I'm trying to win the game. The first is combat. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a Gruul decks. We're trying to win by combat. We have things like Xenagos, Karlach, and extra combat cards like Relentless Assault, World at War, Savage Beating, and then our Ag Assault type combos to allow us to take more and more combats. And all of our dragons are through the air. They're probably going to have trample. If they don't, they're going to be giant, and they're going to be flying, which means our opponents will need all flying blockers to stop us. That's the way that I find myself winning most of the time, especially if you can get your Ag Assault out with a Sword of Feast and Famine or a Bear Umber, something where you're untapping all your lands and paying more mana into it. Remember that Klauth's mana cannot go into Aggravated Assault. You can't pay for abilities with it. You can play for the pay for the spells, but basically, if you can get yourself set up in a way with something like the Reaver Cleaver or Old Gnawbone, where you're getting treasures every time you deal damage, you can put those treasures into Aggravated Assault to keep your combats going. So that's the big intention there. And then the second way you win is Jai Simulating Inferno, Crack with Power, Comet Storm. These guys, what they're going to do is you're going to just get a ton of mana with Klauth. I've gotten in the past 45, 50 mana off a Klauth attack. Crack with Power, deal 5 times X, up to X targets. You need at least 3 into X so that you can target all of your opponents, but you just want to put in as much as you can and hit all your opponents, and then you can even just pick permanents beyond that point. Jai Simulating Inferno already does it to 3 targets, so you can already do it to your opponents. Just dump as much as you can into X and let it off. And then Comet Storm has multi-kicker, so you'll basically think of this as an X 2 and then double red because you need to pay for the extra targets if you want to target your opponents. Dump as much into X as you can, and it deals damage. The thing to remember about this is you're probably thinking, but Millzy, that's 40 damage I have to hit into each of these spells. Giants Emulating Inferno, Comet Storm, that's a ton of mana. Even if Klauth makes me 30, that's still a lot. That's a big way to get. Well, you have to remember you're attacking your opponents before you use that mana, which means that they already have to deal with all of the dragons that are there. They already have to deal with things like Xenagos, or Atarka giving all your dragons double strike, or Blast Furnace Hellkite giving all of our dragons double strike. You still have to deal with the attack. It's not like the attack goes away. And if you get fogged, that's fine because it doesn't matter. Klauth only cares about on attack, doesn't care about damage. Now, sure, if someone fogs, you lose the Feast and Famine trigger, you'd lose the Reaver Cleaver trigger, you lose the Gnawbone triggers. Okay, sure. So it stops us just that little bit. It does stop us that little bit from gaining more and more value. But I think the difference is that we do have dragons that double. We do have dragons that get us extra combat. Scourge of the Throne get us extra combat. We have dragons that do damage when things come in. We have this toolbox of dragons that are just going to get us further and further into the place where we can win the game. So just like every other Millzy Brews episode, we're going to start the lands and go up. I think the land base here is fairly basic. I mean, we're only playing the Ancient Tomb because we want to get to Klauth as quickly as possible, and we want to make sure we're playing dragons along the way. We don't want Klauth to attack by itself. We really would rather have a dragon down with it, but we don't mind because I think we can still get good value on just Klauth alone. This brew was built a little bit more towards myself, so a lot of the choices I've made in this deck are cards that I have or cards that I have access to that I want to use. So, for example, people may look at Nykthos and think Nykthos doesn't make a ton of sense, but I think it does in a deck where you're playing all permanents. Nykthos can do a lot of good, and if we have a very wide board and Klauth can't, Klauth's mana can't go into Aggravated Assault, we may be able to tap Nykthos for enough mana to use Aggravated Assault, and keep the combo going. Cavern of Souls and Path of Ancestry are the two lands that care about the types. We do have the Haven of Spirit Dragon as well. I considered Secluded Courtyard and Unbound or Unclaimed Territory. But the thing with those two is we're only in 2 colors. So in all reality, I'm actually better off just playing a dual land that comes in untapped rather than either of those because it just gets me the same result rather than playing those. So I kind of swapped those out for basics. Castle Garenbrig still does a lot of good here because that added mana can go really far. And we've tried our best to keep our tap lands down as much as we can. The only risk we have of something coming in tapped in all reality is, Stomping Garden, Spire Garden. But I mean, if you're turn 1 using the Wooded Foothills to go get a Stomping Ground, then, any other fetch you do is going to be for basics and you're not as worried about them coming in tapped. Okay, let's go to the enchantments. This enchantment list is really small because we really only need it to do a couple things. We have Ramp, we have Utopia Sprawl, and we have Wild Growth. These are here for those quick turn 1, turn 2 ramps just to get us up that 1 extra piece of mana. Both go on and make the land tap for an additional mana. Wild Growth can go onto any land and it taps for additional green. Utopia Sprawl can only go on a forest. We choose a color and it taps for that additional color. These are both great. We love seeing them early. Sylvan Library's there for the extra draw. We have no problem paying the life if we know we can get a giant attack turnoff. Klauth, at the end of the day, wins the game via combat or big spells or extra combat, so we don't mind paying the extra 4/8 life to get the cards that we need. Now, the prohibitively expensive card in here that may throw people off is Survival of the Fittest. This is only in here because I have one, and so I want it in here to pitch a dragon I don't want for a Goldspan or a Terror of the Peaks, depending on what you need at the time. You can run another creature instead. If you don't like Survival of the Fittest, I would take it out for Defense of the Heart. Defense of the Heart's really great as well. Does a very similar thing in allowing you to go get some creatures for free. But my goal here is to try to have this Klauth list be a little bit higher up on the power scale, and I think the Survival of the Fittest kind of helps with that. Our enablers, we talked about Aggravated Assault and Bear Umbra before. Bear Umbra, when the creature attacks, we untap all of our lands. So this is great because This pairs with Aggravated Assault and Klauth to let us keep just stacking up mana, but we untap our lands, and then we can use the lands to pay for Aggravated Assault, continuing to go with combats and hopefully winning the game as soon as we exhaust all of our creatures, our opponent's flyers. Fire Emancipation, fun card in here. If a source we control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage. This is effectively going to help you, just like alternate combats, to win the game. I have thought about adding Gratuitous Violence as well, because both of them actually help with Crack with Power and Comet Storm and Giants Unleashing Inferno. I just haven't found the spot yet. To be 100% honest, I think it should be in there, but I kind of like all of these other consistency pieces, so I'm not sure. I think I would rather lose the added bonus of having another one of these enchantments to have more consistency so that you're more often getting to the spot you need to get quicker. We have Elemental Bond and Garruk's Uprising for some card draw, drawing us cards when dragons come in. Garruk's Uprising does give all of our creatures trample, and that's even better. That's going to help us out. Rhythm of the Wild can give all of our creatures haste or a +1/+1 counter, depending on which we choose. I'm not playing very many haste enablers because I don't think we need it. In all reality, I think we're okay building up and then swarming in with Klauth when we have it. Dragon Tempest does give our dragons haste, which is great as well, and then it does some damage whenever a dragon enters the battlefield. It deals X damage to target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons we control. And Scourge of Volcost does a very similar thing. So if you've watched my Miram video, we're playing into that combo just a teeny bit, but not as much as Miram is. Miram's playing a lot more into that combo to help end games. Klauth is just simply using it because we have access to it, so why not use it? And then Unnatural Growth is in here because it perfectly pairs with Klauth. This is going to double all of our power and toughnesses for each creatures we control at every combat, both offensive and defensive. And the best part here is that's basically just going to double the amount of mana we can get with Klauth. Unnatural Growth will get us those massive spell wins. So I love Unnatural Growth. I really wish we had a way in red or green to search out enchantments. It would make the deck probably even more better, but that's okay. I think I like the wait and see kind of thing. My problem is sometimes the black decks or white decks where we have access to the E-tutors is you're looking for that tutor. What I like about red and green is I'm using these card draws, and I want to win by combat. I don't want this deck to win by a big Jaya Zimlating Inferno or anything like that, although I will happily use it if I need to. I want to win by just smashing face with dragons. And so that's why I really enjoy this deck, because it can do both, and you have two routes to win instead of just one. Coming up into the artifacts, I imagine this looks pretty fair to most people. Arcane Signet, Soul Ring. Dragon Sword is pretty much a staple on most dragon lists just because it gives you that ability to draw a card, which can be really massive if you need to draw a card. Herald's Horn, just to reduce the cost by dragons a little bit, get Klauth down a little bit, but mainly just to allow us to hopefully play more than one dragon in a turn. Jade Order of Dragonkind, really love this one because if we use this to pay for Klauth, it comes down with Hexproof, which is just really helpful. That way nobody can remove it, and that's more beneficial than a lot of other things. Again, the Crypt's in here because we want to get Klauth out as fast as we can. Feast and Famine, again, it only does it on damage. As soon as a creature we have deals combat damage, then it untaps all of our lands. But same thing, it pairs with this Ag Assault, Bear Umbra, multiple combats game plan. Great Henge, killer in this deck. Anytime a creature comes in, non-creature, we get a +1/+1 counter and draw a card. That's just going to help us refill our hands a little bit better, keep cards in our hand, and keep us moving along. And then the Reaver Cleaver is one of the newer adds. I think being able to get the tokens, the treasures, when we don't have Gnawbone out is going to be great because we can put this on any creature we want to. And if it's, if our opponent has no flying blockers and we swing Klauth into somebody for 6 or 7 or 10 or 11, if we have Unnatural Growth out, cool, we just made 11 treasures and now we can keep going down the route we want to go. All right, sorceries and instants. We talked about the extra combats already. We talked about the damage spells already. Let's talk about kind of the rest. The rest of the deck, as far as the sorceries go, is pretty much meant for ramp. Explorer, Farseek, Into the North, Nature's Lore, Rampant Growth, 3 visits. All standard ramp cards. Explorer gives us a little bit of card draw as well. Mana Geysers in here to help us ramp into getting out more dragons in one turn. Same thing with Jeska's Will. Allows us to get more than one dragons out in one turn. Now, the cool part about Jeska's Will and Escape to the Wilds, these are in here because Jeska's Will has a very similar effect to Escape to the Wilds in that, Jeska's Will can exile the top 3 and we can play them. Escape to the Wilds exiles the top 5 until the next turn we can play them. This is great because if we don't have one of these big fancy spells, but we get, I don't know, 10 or 12 or 15 mana with Klauth, well, we can dump it into one of these quick, right? Exile the top few cards of our deck, play some more ramp, play some more things, kind of get ourselves prepped up for the next turn when we might be able to take that big attack and kind of get ready. So these are here just to let us see some more cards and kind of push us forward. Finale Devastation is in here as another way to end the game, but this one is going to be combat focused. So instead of dealing just X damage to all our opponents, we dump our 20 mana from Klauth into here. If we have another combat, go get a creature. Probably doesn't really matter because it's going to come in and all of our creatures get haste. And then we're adding +X. It doesn't really matter what the value is. If our opponents have no flying blockers and we have a free attack in, it doesn't matter. We're going to end the game, right? So this is another one of those spells that we keep in our hand until the right moment, use it at the right time, and win the game by combat. I don't think we need. This is my Crater Hoof of choice in this deck. I want the Dragon Synergy, so I didn't use the Crater Hoof. But I think Finale Devastation is kind of our Crater Hoof of choice. You could also just as easily run an Overwhelming Stampede or something like that, because your dragons are always going to be big enough that you're going to get good value off of it, right? And kind of push through for it that way. So I'm not running Triumph for the Hordes because in my opinion, we don't need it. We already have the advantage of being in the air, right? We are the advantage of flyers. So I feel like we don't need Triumph for the Hordes. If there's only one other flying creature type or tribe that's going to be able to block us well, and that's angels. And the only way we're going to beat the angels is by overpowering them. We don't have the vigilance they have. We don't have those things. We need to just raw power slam over them. That's the only way we can do it. And any angel deck is not going to survive head-to-head combat for that long once we get this engine set up. If our creatures are big enough, we have a natural growth running, we have all these dragons running. I don't think even an angel deck that has a pretty wide board is going to do well against us unless they have First Strike. And if we're in the area where they have First Strike and we don't, okay, sure, then that's the one deck that's probably going to stack up well to us. But I think any other flying tribe, we're gonna chump block them into death, and I don't think that they're gonna be able to stack up well against the amount of dragons we can get for the mana we get them. So if I'm sitting down at this deck with the table with this deck, and I see somebody has an angel deck, they're probably the deck that I need to watch the most because they're the people that can really give us the biggest threat. But if you're playing, creatures that are only on the ground or combo decks, the goal with this deck is hopefully we can kind of get above the combo decks and do, our thing before they can. This is not a CDH list, so if someone at your table is playing a high-powered Prosper or Chatterfang deck, no, we can't outrace them like we can with some aggro decks. But the fun here is we kind of mix the fun of tribal decks with the fun of combats in a more flavorful way. Sure, I could pull out half these dragons, put in Port Razor, put in Kiki Jiki, put in Combat Celebrant. You could take this entire dragon package out, take it out, except I would say Gnawbone, Savage Ventmaw, because it works very similar with Aggravated Assault. I'd probably still keep in Blast Furnace Hellkite. I'd still keep in maybe a Tarka and Copper Dragon. But you could take most of the rest of the dragons in here out. Put in the Port Razors, the Kiki Jikis, the Combat Celebrants, the Zealous Conscripts. You could put that in that whole entire extra combat creature red package in and do what you wanted to do and make this deck all extra combats if you wanted to. But what I wanted to do was marry this list between dragons, extra combats, and these big mana spells and kind of have a flavorful tribal list, which is only -2 on the tribal scale with Karlach and Xenagos. And Xenagos is in here because the card's too good. It does everything you want a creature to do in green-red. In fact, if I had to build a combats list, Xenagos would probably be my commander because it does so much good stuff on its own. But I think they're perfect supports in this deck where you're trying to still gain the advantage you can. We got Shivan Devastator, which I think does a great job because it just becomes giant the more mana we have. If we're in one of those extra combat loops and Klauth gives us 50 mana, you could put 50 mana to Shivan Devastator and have this giant dragon that comes in with haste and then can attack if you want to. A more recent addition was Manaform Hellkite. I realized more and more that I think Manaform Hellkite is really good on the turns where you're getting some mana from Klauth and then going into a second combat. You could dump all your mana into spells. Manaform Hellkite's going to give you those dragon tokens, and then those tokens can attack and deal damage. So I think that works kind of well. Savage Ventmaw, Hellkite Charger are your kind of additions to this. Savage Ventmaw is going to give you mana, which you can always put into the Ag Assault, but Hellkite Charger will let you pay 7 and go for another combat. We can't use the Klauth mana for that, but if we have treasures or anything like that, this gives us another card besides Aggravated Assault to do that. And then I really like Hellkite Courser in this deck. It says when it enters the battlefield, you can put your commander you own from the command zone onto the battlefield. It gets haste, and then return it at the beginning of the next end step. This is great because for 6 mana for Hellkite Courser, we can get Klauth down as well. And the cool part is if we have Rhythm of the Wild or anything out like that, we can get haste on the Courser. Otherwise, we're putting Klauth down and still, and using all of the value we have there. And then just one Planeswalker, a Domri Anarchobolus. I think the 3-mana Sarkhan is fine in this spot. I really wanted to put the 4-mana Domri in from Revocative Legions because it's one of my favorite red-green Planeswalkers, and I feel like it just never gets play. But Anarchobolus, I think, is perfect for this because it gives all of our creatures +1/+0, which means that that Klauth count is just going to go up by every creature that we have. His +1 gives us a red or green, and then creature spells can't be countered this turn, and that's really great because then it lets us just play dragons for free, and then the -2 will just let us fight if we need to. Fighting, I don't think we need to in this deck because, like I said, I think we're just going to outclass our opponents in the air anyway, but the fight is nice if you need to get around something and you can't. We're not playing a ton of removal. Really, the only thing I'm playing is Beast Within, and then technically these damage cards can target creatures if you needed them to. But again, I have made the decision, and it could be a little bit glass cannon, but I don't think it is because I think we're still going to ramp and be fine anyway. But I made the decision to make this, let's be the aggressor, let's take the combats, let's win the game that way, and fall back on a little bit of these combo-y things on the back end if we need them. Like I said, I would much rather just win by combat than have to mess around with the crackle with powers and that kind of thing. But what I think that will do is it'll give your opponents too much to deal with, hopefully, if we can put enough things down. And I think it just, to me, this is what a Dragons list should be. It should be big dragons. It should be combat. It should be running your opponents over. I love Miram. I mean, Miram's fun because it's a combo deck. It deals with some different things, and I love the addition of blue and what it gives you to make your combos and make your plays. But what I like about Klauth is it's what I want from a red-green Dragons list. I really like Atarka. I like that they did the starter deck with Atarka, but I think Klauth takes everything Atarka already wants to do and probably just speeds it up. It gives you extra mana right every turn. It does those things. And so if you're interested in the red-green Dragons list, a lot of this deck's price comes from some of those cards down bottom where they're fairly expensive. This dragon package shouldn't be too bad on cost, besides probably Copper Dragon, Goldspan Dragon, and Gnawbone. The rest of it shouldn't be too bad. I mean, all the dragons got either reprinted in decks recently or aren't too bad on the secondary market. But I think a lot of this style could be played in something like Atarka and just a lot of ramp. If you picked up a starter, Atarka deck and it was something you were interested in. I think in the next coming weeks, I'd like to do brews based on those starter commander decks. I never am going to be the channel that does a $50 pre-con upgrade because it's not really what I'm interested in doing. But I'd like to just say, hey, how would I take the core of this deck and the commander and change it to be something I'd want to play and kind of pull the power level up and have some fun with it. So if that's something you want to see, let me know down in the comments. I'm a lot more interested in doing Asperia, the white blue Asperia deck and the white green tokens deck than I am with the zombies and the dragons. obviously because the dragons, of course, I have, we just did Klauth, and in my opinion, this is probably one of the best dragons lists you're going to find as far as the red-green dragons goes. And with Geese and Geralt, I'd like to do Wilhout eventually again, go back and revisit Wilhout and make that deck again. And I think it's the better zombie commander. And we can talk about the differences in that video. And I'd like to do that and talk about what, kind of what the difference is there and why I think Wilhout's just clearly a better commander. But that, guys, is Klauth, big mana. Hope you guys enjoyed Klauth. Let me know what I missed down in the comments. What cards do you think belong in Klauth that aren't here? What cards do you think I missed, or what cards do you think don't work? How would you change the deck if you had the deck to run yourself? If you're interested in a Red Greens Dragons list, I really like this list. It's a ton of fun, and I'm excited to bring this one to the shop again and see how it does against some of the random meta. But thank you guys so much for watching. Give me a like, give me a subscribe if you want to see some more deck techs coming up. Again, Phyrexia LB1 will be here very soon, and I will be brewing my butt off for that. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.